Did you know that Nigeria was bought for £865,000?
In 1900, Britain officially assumed responsibility for the administration of the whole of what we now know as Nigeria from the Niger Company. And then, gradually over the years, British protectorates were established throughout the territory. In 1914, the protectorates were amalgamated into one Nigeria.
Hey, I'm Bisi Akins, and in today's episode of All Things Africa, we are going to explore the details of the business deal that led to the formation of modern Nigeria. So let's get right into it. During and post-colonialism, the region that is now Nigeria gained immense significance to the British Empire due to its abundant natural resources, including palm oil, rubber, cocoa, timber, and ground nuts. These resources were essential for sustaining Britain's industrial economy and maintaining its global dominance. However, before Nigeria became a nation and achieved its independence on October 1st, 1960, its history had an interesting beginning. What many people may not know is that the Nigeria we know started off as a business deal between a company and the British government, in which they paid £865,000, which today is roughly about £120,352,800. But before the acquisition, the region was home to numerous ethnic groups and tribes, each with its own distinct language, culture, and traditions. For example, in the north, Islam dominated through two Islamic empires, the Sokoto Caliphate and the Bono Empire. To the southwest lay numerous Yoruba city-states that generally had animist religion in common and occasionally united. To the southwest was the Igbo Kingdom, Nri, and a collection of semi-autonomous towns and villages situated in the Niger River Delta. The regions were linguistically, religiously, and politically distinct. So then how did this so-called business deal actually come about? Well, in 1879, British businessman George Goldie established the United African Company with the objective of monopolizing the palm oil trade along the lower Niger River to gain a strategic advantage over rival colonial powers like France and Germany. But in order to do this, Goldie needed official authorization to operate in the region, leading to the request for a royal charter. In 1886, this was granted and the United African Company became the Royal Niger Company. Goldie now had the authority to oversee and operate within the Niger Delta and surrounding territories. With power, he used deceptive tactics to secure trade agreements with the local chiefs, exploiting language barriers and misrepresenting the terms of treaties. His deceitful practices and the exploitative nature of the treaties sparked tensions and resistance amongst local communities. Chief Judge of Opobo's attempt to challenge the Royal Niger Company authority when he wanted to export his own palm oil resulted in his exile, as he was accused of obstructing commerce, and upon his return, he died under suspicious circumstances. The outcome of his death led to the Brass War, as other local chiefs went to protest against the exploitation of the Royal Niger Company at their headquarters in Bayelsa. In 1899, revelations of their actions resulted in public outrage over the Royal Niger Company's misconduct, and the British government revoked their royal charter. On January 1st, 1900, the Royal Niger Company received £865,000 and was given the rights to half of all the mining revenue in a large part of the area for 99 years in exchange for giving up the territory. The British government took control, paving the way for the creation of the British colony of Nigeria, shaping the future of its development. So then what did the British do with the colony that they paid for? After the purchase, the British established protectorates over various territories in present-day Nigeria to assert control and influence over the indigenous populations and resources. The territories were divided into three administrative blocks. Northern areas were renamed the Protectorate of Northern Nigeria. The land in the Niger Delta and along with lower reaches of the river were renamed the Protectorate of Southern Nigeria. And the Lagos colony, which was the area around the port city of Lagos and its immediate surroundings, stood independently. So then how exactly did this amalgamation work then? The process of unification started in 1906 with the merger of the Lagos colony and the Southern Niger Protectorate. This initial step aimed to harmonize governance structures and facilitate more efficient administrative operations. However, the true consolidation of the territory happened on January 1st, 1914 under Sir Frederick Lugard, a British colonial administrator. By the way, the name Nigeria was actually suggested by Flora Shaw, who became Mrs. Lugard. In an article for the Times of London on January 8, 1897, she suggested the name Nigeria to describe the region held by the Niger Royal Company territories and the Southern Protectorate. However, it was only afterwards that this name was extended to the northern region when the British, led by her husband, conquered Sokoto and Kano. Following his success in the Northern Protectorate, Lugard was appointed as the Governor General of the Nigeria Territory. His strategy of indirect rule allowed the British to use an administrative approach that delegated local governance to traditional rulers, emirs in the north and kings in the south, who led their own people under the guidance of European officials. Basically, Lugard's system allowed the British to maintain control over the territories with minimal direct intervention, leveraging existing indigenous structures to maintain the colonies. By using pre-existing native institutions, the colonial administration minimized interference with local customs while retaining influence over policies and systems impacting the people. Now, over time, Nigeria's governance system evolved into a sophisticated model named native administration, which became a defining feature of British colonial rule in Africa. Bringing together the protectorates marked a significant milestone in Nigeria's history and laid the groundwork for what was supposed to be a unified national identity, but instead, it raised questions of cultural assimilation and regional disparities which continue to resonate today. The amalgamation served the interests of the British Empire by creating a larger, more economically viable colonial entity, which was crucial for sustaining Britain's industrial economy. By bringing everything together, the British could better exploit the abundance of natural resources for their own benefit. Now, many changes came with the British rule. Western education, the English language, Christianity spread, new forms of money, transportation, and communication were developed, and the Nigerian economy became based on the export of cash crops. Areas with lucrative crops such as cocoa and groundnuts profited, while many people in different parts of the country had to migrate to work elsewhere as tenant farmers or use their newly acquired education and skills to work in cities as wage earners, traders, and artisans. Two tiers of governments emerged, central and local. The central government was led by the Governor General and accountable to the Secretary for the Colonies in London, which was more powerful but distant from the people. Whereas the local administration was based on the policy of indirect rule first developed in the north. So are we saying that nobody resisted what was happening? Well, there was resistance to the British colonial rule, but Lugard employed various ways to suppress potential uprisings and maintain control. His main tool was the divide and rule policy, which prevented united opposition to British authority by keeping Nigerian ethnic groups separate from each other. In the northern regions, British colonial administrators collaborated closely with local traditional leaders, mainly emirs and imams. This partly because the introduction of Western education by Christian missionaries was met with resistance from many traditional leaders who saw it as a challenge to their Islamic and cultural values. Whereas in the southern regions, the British sometimes established new political hierarchies or governed through individuals who, let's say, aligned with their objectives, irrespective of their traditional positions of authority. Such disparity led to the disproportionate spread of Western education and Christianity between the North and the South, contributing to significant differences in development and leading to growing political tensions. While the southern region underwent rapid modernization and cultural transformation, the northern region lagged behind, resulting in socio-economical differences that fueled grievances and potential unrest. Now, despite British efforts to maintain control, resistance to colonial rule persisted, resulting in periodic conflicts and challenges to Nigerian authority throughout Nigeria's colonial history. To drive peace, the Southern Protectorate was divided into two provinces in 1939, Western and Eastern, and in 1954, they, along with the Northern Protectorate, were renamed the Western, Northern, and Southern regions as part of Nigeria's reconstruction into a federal state. So what then happened to the Royal Niger Company? Now, although the Royal Niger Company no longer exists, its influence did not completely disappear. Today, multinational corporation Unilever oversees its interests, remaining a prominent player in Nigeria's economy, highlighting how colonial-era enterprises still shape modern Nigerian society. And also, let's not forget about that 99-year mining rights release. And what about Nigeria today? Now, although the amalgamation occurred over a century ago, modern Nigeria remains home to over 250 ethnic groups, each contributing to its cultural richness. The country's different regions, north, south, east, and west, reflect this diversity with distinct cultural nuances and historical legacies. Today, Nigeria faces various challenges arising from its diversity as ethnic tensions, often fueled by competition for political power, economic resources, and social status, persist. These tensions sometimes escalate into conflicts leading to violence and displacement. The legacy of colonialism and the 1914 amalgamation left a complex administrative structure, ill-equipped to address the needs of such diverse ethnic groups. Regional disparities in development, resource allocation, political representation further drives these tensions, fostering a sense of marginalization amongst certain communities. While ethno-religious divisions, particularly between the Muslim majority north and the Christian majority south, pose additional challenges to national cohesion. Religious extremism and sectarian periodically disrupt social harmony, threatening peace and stability. But despite these challenges, Nigeria is striving to address ethnic tensions and promote social cohesion through inter-ethnic dialogue, institution strengthening, and economic development initiatives, all for the sake of fostering peace and prosperity for all Nigerians. Alright, so I know that was a lot of information to take in, so let's take a break. What did we actually learn in today's episode? Well, firstly, understanding the historical context of Nigeria's formation sheds light on the complexities of colonial governance and its lasting impact on contemporary society. Secondly, the amalgamation of Nigeria was not a spontaneous decision, but a strategic move by British colonial authorities led by Sir Frederick Lugard to consolidate control and maximize economic interests in the region. And lastly, the role of individuals like George Goldie and entities like the Royal Niger Company highlights the exploitative nature of colonialism and its detrimental effects on local communities. Last week we asked you this. The answer is what unique subculture emerged in the Democratic Republic of Congo, characterized by extravagant fashion displays and a love for extravagant designer brands? Is it Kinshasa Couture Collective, Brazzaville Vogue Movement, the Sapeurs, or the Lubumbashi Fashion Society? Let us know your answers in the comments below and we will reveal the answer in the next episode. Amalgamation was a complex process that shaped Nigeria's trajectory in significant ways. Whilst it facilitated British colonial and economic exploitation, it also sparked resistance and social upheaval amongst indigenous community. However, it's very important to question whether the price paid for Nigeria's unification was justifiable. The amalgamation wasn't a voluntary coming together, but rather a calculated move by British officials to consolidate their dominance and advance their economic interests in the region. This forced unity has contributed to ongoing tensions and challenges within Nigeria, raising questions about the legacy of colonialism and the pursuit of peace and stability in the country. Without this, let's say, external interference, could Nigeria have evolved differently, with each ethnic group governing its own lands according to its own rules? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Well, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. If you've enjoyed learning about the amalgamation of Nigeria, which I'm sure you have, why don't you like the video, comment and share your thoughts below, but most importantly, don't forget to subscribe for all things Africa.